Hey, it's a hello and welcome once again because Wingspan Full Court Africa is back in effect three times. It's where we effective from outside the three-point line, and these analogies are only going to keep getting worse because I've got my front court partner and trusted African eye on the continent in terms of basketball, Jacques Vandescure with me. I'm Quintin Denyssen, and we've got the continent covered, the length and the breadth. So welcome to Wingspan Full Court Africa. And Jacques, hey man, we get to delve into something really exciting and intriguing today because we're talking youth basketball. And a little bit earlier in the year in Rwanda, in September 2nd to the 14th, AfroBasket U16 took place, and it was a surprising tournament. But let's first let me say, hey, hi, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm always excited to talk about basketball, but when you send me that message, I was like, you know what, that's like actually a great idea. I was in Rwanda, and we never talk enough about young talent on the continent and the Afro U16, who's been just going up and going up in terms of playing style and quality. So, very excited about talk about what I saw. I was in Rwanda. Rwanda has been hosting a lot of events, and we've seen a lot of talent, by the way, going through this AfroBasket U16. So I think this year was also another year with a lot of talent.
So before we really get into it, I mean, there's a lot to talk about. Maybe let's start with the tournament because I feel if we start to talk pathways and where you can showcase some of your talent, then we go BWP, we go Giants of Africa, we start to talk about academies, then we pull away from the U16 tournaments for under 16 tournament. But let's start there because first of all, this was the first Afro basket where the North Africans, the Egyptians, failed to pick up a medal ever in the existence of the tournament. So they finished fourth in the tournament, and we got a new winner in Cote d'Ivoire. Does this mean that youth basketball development is shifting towards the west of Africa? Because we're starting to see, I mean, Mali's dominance at under 18 level has been well documented, but now we're starting to see West Africa really become prominent. And maybe this has got to do with the NBA Academy, with Seed, with Play to Lead, with, the real emergence of strong basketball development taking place out there in the West.
Yeah, you're right, man. It's been a story around North Africa when we look at African basketball in history. But as you just mentioned, he kind of switched into a different path. And I think when you look at the the cornerstone of basketball, it must be size and athleticism, and how basketball has been going this past few years, where there's a lot more running, a little bit less organized basketball, 1-on-1, 2-on-2. It's just quick decision all over the floor, and you certainly want to run the floor and have aggressive rebounders, not only at the center position but at every position. And I think that just fits more the sub-Saharan type of body shape that we find in Mali, in Ivory Coast, in Congo, Cameroon, Nigeria. And it's true that organized basketball, and I'm not saying that those guys are disorganized, by the way. I'm just saying that they raise their level of physicality. The change of pace have really helped those countries to actually elevate their game and being able to showcase their talent. And we can see how now it's no longer playing 24 seconds. It's about making quick decision with the ball, attacking the paint, and being able to finish against those more athletic players that we have in today's basketball. And we saw this year, it wasn't different than the last couple of years, but Ivory Coast was athletic. They were capable to rebound the ball and run the court, and that was the difference.
We can't talk about the country's basketball without, you know, focusing on what Wingspan actually does, and that is scouting. You're looking at a young up and coming talent, and you're trying to identify guys that possibly have a real career bouncing the ball for the next 10 to 12, 15 years potentially on different continents. So let's start with which guys particularly caught your eye, and you know let's start with any of the first players. I wanted to go to the All-Star team and mention players, but I think I'm going to put it in your hands to just tell me who exactly caught your eye.
Well, listen, there's something about the U16 AfroBasket. We sometimes want to see the best players, but it's not always the guys that are going to go the furthest, by the way. I mean, it's often the players with the most potential. They might be raw at the U16, but you can see the extent of their potential within the next 2 or 3 years if they keep on getting better. Let me go. I'm going to start with the kid which I thought had an amazing potential, might be the highest ceiling that we saw at the U16 AfroBasket, from Sierra Leone. And I don't see a player from Sierra Leone that often, by the way. Benjamin Davis, 6'11". There was something, by the way, I just wanted to say the U16, for some reason, we were not capable to get the sizes or coming from the FIBA, so we kind of had to go to stand up in the and walk by the scale just to kind of be able to measure how tall they were. But believe me, this is a 6'11" kid born in 2010. The center, very, very raw. Benjamin Davis, almost average 15 rebounds a game, 13 rebounds. I'm looking at my stats here, 5.5, raw in offense, had to play a lot of minutes because, besides him, Sierra Leone didn't have any tall guys that were capable to control the paint, rebound the ball and protect the rim. But I thought it was amazing. Just when you look at his size, it was just a solid human being. Sometimes when you see those young 6'11", at that age, they might not be able to walk or run as they're supposed to because their frame is so big. But I thought he stands straight. He was not the fastest guy running the court, but I just liked the way he moved without the ball. And then there was something that really attracted my eyes is he was focused on rebounding the ball. I was looking through the stats. He had a run against Rwanda, which was not the tallest team, but he had 21 rebounds, 5 offensive rebounds. And then the next game against Angola, he had 16 rebounds and 7 blocks. And I thought that just showed, when you rebound and you block shot, that shows your personality and your activity, your intensity on the court. And when you're at that age and being that raw, capable to gather so many rebounds, that means that you have potential. By the way, I just want to say this, Q. There were a lot of scouts watching these kids. There were scouts coming from Europe already making phone calls as they were watching the game. So believe me, the kid and the NBA Academy, by the way, which is definitely the primary destination in Africa, was already on him because they were just happy with what they were seeing.
Averaging about 30 minutes a game, like you said, going for 13. And like you said, maybe a little bit raw because it's 5.5 points per game on 35% shooting, but he's still, under the age of 16 years old. And this is not the United States of America. You're going to get the raw athlete and you're going to have to work on some of the softer skills closer to the rim. But what you want to see is, the ability to rebound the ball, speed up and down the court like you're talking about. Foot movement is something that I've seen you've got an index on, control of the body, balance, agility, and then you find the raw tools. But in a tournament where, for the first time in a long time, FIBA were able to attract all 12 teams, all 12 teams that are qualified sent through the under 16 team. It was a rare moment. Looking at the history on the continent and understanding that I played in the one under 18 tournament a very long time ago, which we won't talk about necessarily when that was. But the point was, even when we did that, it was only a 16 tournament, and we've seen increased participation at youth level. That's also rising with the interest of and the growth of the game. So hopefully we'll be able to unearth more talent. So in a short nutshell, Benjamin Davis, someone to keep an eye on, and that 10.21 rebound performance against Rwanda, something that really caught the eye of you and caught the eye of some of the scouts out there. And like you said, maybe we might be seeing him in the NBA Academy really soon. But let's also talk. I want to talk because the tournament MVP carries some weight, especially at the under 16 level, at the 18 level. We've seen that translate almost directly into the full senior national team level. It's very rare that it doesn't, but Africa has some really good talent. And you want to talk a little bit about Jean-Philippe Oka and his role leading his team to the championship.
Yeah, Oka was amazing all throughout the tournament. And I just want to say I missed the first few days of the AfroBasket because traveling was just a little hard at that moment. So I had to wait a couple of days, and I was watching him live on my tablet, on the FIBA Africa YouTube handle. And I was amazed about his physical athleticism. So I was already making calls before I was even in Kigali, trying to understand where this kid is coming from, and everything about him. And believe me, it was even more impressive to watch him play live than it was on the tablets at home. What I'm saying by this is like, and I understand not everybody can travel, and I'm blessed. I'm able to travel at this moment, but there's so many things that you miss when you're watching a kid on TV that you're capable to see when you are live. The kid was just a beast, and the fact that he He helped his team win. The AfroBasket was very, very important because you're looking at leadership. You look at his size, 6'7", a wing, small forward, reminded me of Jonathan Kuminga. By the way, Jonathan Kuminga came from Goma, which is only 3 hours and a half from Kigali. But you're looking at his ability to run the floor, his ability to finish in the paint. I thought Oka had an amazing footwork because he had some crazy finishes. It was not the basic conservative 1-2 step and then jumping. He jumped and dunk off of his left and right foot, 2 hands, 1 hand, reading close out, attacking the paint, and he was relentless in terms of intensity, running the floor at all time. He didn't shoot the ball well. Let me see what I have. He shot the ball from the 3-point line, from 17, but that's something that comes with repetitions. He's actually in the United States at this very moment. So he's going to get his reps. He's going to get his shooting form, rearranged so he can make his shots. But I just love his attitude. Something that was extremely impressive is as they kept on going close to win the championship, and that was very intense team. You could see his leadership. He wasn't a loud leader, but he was aggressive with himself. The way he would, when he missed something, the way he looked at himself, you could see the pressure, but also the way he was communicating with his teammates. You could see that this kid was just about winning, and on both ends of the court, by the way. And I think he played well the whole time. He got the MVP. It was just a clear cut. Not often you have a small forward winning MVP because it's easier to get a big guy with blocks, and rebounds. But I thought that as a wing, he was one of the most impressive players that I've seen at the AfroBasket the last 10 years at least.
Those are big words coming from you, Jacques Vandescure. 18 points, 5 steals, 6 rebounds in the final against Cameroon. He also had a game where he went for 26 and had 6 steals and got around with 8 boards. But I think his all-around numbers, when you average 16 and a half, 11, and then you also go for 2.5 assists and 2.3 steals. You speak about his two-way ability. It's something that will attract the attention and definitely a name that I think we need to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
It's always,
And
maybe it's a gift. I was going to say, maybe it's a gift and a curse when you talk about shooting. Go ahead.
Yeah, he had some crazy dunks, man. He had some of the crazy dunks. It seems like at some point, we're just not talking about fast break dunks. I'm talking about driving to the paint. You don't think that there's a way he can dunk it, and then he dunks it. Tip dunks. He had, you know what? He made me wish we were still 16 years old. When everything you like, and I wasn't a high flyer, but I'm saying, he looked like every time he would see the rim, doesn't matter if there's somebody in front of him or not, a referee, he would just jump over and try to dunk it. So I had a lot of fun watching him play.
Unanimous MVP, high flying, and you expect nothing less when you're watching continental talent that's being unearthed. We have one more player to have a look at because, consistency, I think, wins the day. And when you look at his numbers, you see 10.8 and 12 boards throughout the tournament, but you can go through each game and you just see that always around the double numbers. I think his finals performance, or his performance in the fourth place playoff was really great. And talking about Ivory Ouedraogo, right?
Yeah, exactly, man. Listen, you gotta look, as you and I did, and I was watching him live. You look at the stats, and you're like, man, this is amazing. He actually gave you his best game in the final. And let me go back into my statistic because I think that's what I said. He's got 25 rebounds in the final against Cameroon. And for anybody who has been watching African basketball, Cameroon always have the toughest team. They always have the toughest players. Nobody dies on the court when they play for Cameroon. Everybody always survive. That's how tough they are. And coming with 25 rebounds in 25 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, no, sorry about that. 20 rebounds. He had 5 offensive. So 20 rebounds in 25 minutes is amazing in the final. Look at his playing time. He only played one game more than 20 minutes. That was the final. Every other game, the other game that he played less than 20 minutes. So his stats, 12 points, sorry about that, 10 points, 12 rebounds, right? I think I got this right. It's amazing when you look at his playing time because he's playing almost less than 20 minutes a game. And then his ability, same thing. You're talking about a little bit mechanical, on the edge. I kind of like his shooting form. I think he's got enough in him to be able to make the honest shot around the paint, around the key. But I just love his activity, his physicality. At that age, he was dominant physically, pushing people around, jumping, getting rebounds, one hand, two hands, and then running the floor. He was very valuable. And him and Oka were the best two players on their team. But you always need somebody that physically, okay, was already that guy in terms of athletic ability. But when you have somebody that is 6'10", loves pushing around and, is bruising everybody, and I mean, that's just a huge plus. So that's a kid that I thought was amazing with a high potential. All those three kids have high potential. And that's another one that you got to keep on tracking because he's going to make it all the way.
Or maybe one of the most impressive parts of from his stats is that he averaged 5 offensive rebounds a game. Just being a presence inside the paint. You talked about anticipation, physical ability, but also 6'10", that close to the rim, just able to pick up a valuable possession. This is something that the modern game of basketball values a lot, and at
Yeah.
that size, it'll definitely help his case. Now, it's great that we're talking about all the potential, and there's a lot of great potential. Cote d'Ivoire, we spoke about two players coming from there. You spoke about Sierra Leone. We could probably go into every team and pick out maybe one guy that has the
Mm-hmm.
potential to actually turn into a pro. But the question is, and it's a really tough question because I'm sure you get it all the time. It's pathway. Now that you have first identified the talent, never mind as a scout, but as a player, if I think that I'm good enough at the end of 14, move up under 15, under 16 level, how do I go about constructing a pathway that I think is going to lead me to a career? And it's a really tough question, and it's something that I think we can both weigh in on. But what's the best way to go about developing my skills so that I can get picked up and make this pastime or make this love for the sport an actual career?
Yeah, and that's never easy, by the way, when you're that young. I think the first thing is you have to surround yourself with the right people. And at 14 years old, you got to look at your parents, dad and mother. And I always say, for every conversation that you have with an adult, a college coach, a high school coach, make sure that you have your parents, even if they don't follow basketball, but you want to have an adult, a big brother with you listening to the conversation and find the right guy. It can be a coach, an uncle, but somebody that understands the dynamic between adults and where basketball and sports can lead. At 14 years old, sky's the limit, and every kid, dreams about the NBA, but I think it's about, being able to travel, discover the world. That's how you got to use basketball and educate yourself, because this is going to be in you for the rest of your life. Open that window that, you can be in Europe, in the United States, or in Africa. Traveling the world is such a plus as an adult, that you want to use basketball in that, and that's in that way. So what we're seeing is, we're seeing a lot of kids going to Europe. It's never easy because you're getting into places where people have been playing basketball for a long time. Talking about Spain, Spain has been huge. Recruiting African players from all over the continent, by the way. When you look at, the young, how can I say that? The young competition in Spain, almost every team, every major clubs has 1, 2, 3, 4 African players. So that's one route that you can choose. France, Germany, those are the places that Italy also, that you're going to find a lot of Africans. So some kids just want to dive into, prep schools and high schools. It's I went to JUCO. I mean, it's a long time ago. We don't want to speak about me and my basketball, but sometimes something that you discover is it gets lonely, and you have to understand, if you move, if you go to another country with your basketball skills and you don't take time to educate yourself, then you will lose your opportunity because of basketball. But when you educate yourself, you actually open up another window why you can continue to evolve. So, what I would advise every kid and every parent is get people that understand the game, not only at your level, but at the next level, and open yourself to get advice, and that's so important, because the next phase of this young man, like we're talking about Oka is in the United States, but next phase is very lonely. You getting to a different level of competition, having the right people around you is very important.
So let's look at it and let's examine it a little bit, right? Because in recent years, you looked at what Seed Academy has done in Senegal. That was kind of the model, because you talked about education and basketball, and that's the model in the United States. They talk about student athlete, and that is what it is. Joe Duomo and has played to lead, and it's a multi-sport academy, but it's there, and it's again West Africa based. And the question is, are academies the way forward in terms of the African model? Is it scouts that then look at you or send you to a European club or to get into their club system? Their club systems are great because it's focused on development, and you'll learn the system within the club. You'll know what it takes for you to get into a first team. You'll understand how
Hmm.
difficult it is to be the guys at the top. But first, you have to get in there and have recognizable talent because, like you said, your competition has been playing the same sets against different competition for very many years, and they know each other well, so they have established chemistry. Or is it
Right.
that I leave the continent and I go to the US and try to find myself in a school before, so 2 years of high school just to acclimatize, one to acclimatize, two to try and establish something as a player, and then now with NIL, it has financial implications. So it's definitely changed that model. How do we, or what do you think the first couple of steps are? Like you said, having a parent there, having information is important, but um, or is it fit for purpose? Whichever one you feel will work best for the personality type. Because, like you say, some kids can thrive on their own and they'll adapt and they'll
Hmm.
find a good tutor or a good leader that will help guide them and just establish work habits that they'll fit into naturally. Some take longer to acclimatize, and I've seen multiple cases, especially here in South Africa, where a kid goes to the
Right.
US for a year, but they come back because
Hmm.
it's a straight go.
Stuff.
The minute you land, it's basketball and it's work. I mean, and it's studying, and that's it. And then you come back. And without a
Yeah. So
support
so
system, it's tough.
Yeah, it's very tough. So to answer the first part of your question, I think the academy system is the one that's been. When you look at how many players come out of academies in Africa, that's been the most successful way to actually go to either to Europe or go to the United States. And there are other places in the world you can go to. You can go to Australia. You can go to the Philippines. But I'm just talking about those two places. In general, and I think because those academies are just that is the goal. That's what they do. They have great contacts. They have a huge network. They're scouting and recruiting players. There's a first layer of scouting and recruiting. And you know what? They find ways to survive helping player going to a different place. I think at this moment in a lot of countries, many federations uh, don't have the power, don't have the level of organizations to have clubs do the work that an academy can do. Actually, I know Seed very well because I've known Seed for and time goes by fast, but for almost 20 years, and I spent plenty of times at Seed. Seed has an amazing history of helping player move to the next layer. I think they've sent probably around 150 to 200 players. When you look at it, it's millions and millions of dollars in terms of scholarship, helping players getting educated using the sports of basketball. Just from that standpoint, it's a successful place to be, and you get players playing in the Gorgie Jang, play many years. You have Fall playing for Barcelona, and there are plenty of players from Seed Academy all around the world being successful. It's not always at where you playing is what was your dream, and then playing professional is a dream by itself. By the way, somebody's paying you to
Mhm.
play basketball, that is crazy. So I think those academies are still the best place to go. You see the NBA Academy is the same thing, recruiting, scouting. Then we got a specific program where you study at a certain time. You should have your individual training session, your team. You travel with the NBA Academy, you all around the globe. So you getting exposed and you can move into the next phase. There's always a choice that people have to make. Like I said, parents, uncles, brothers, is you have to be able to analyze, does my kid needs to develop more at his position, or can I send him to the United States? I don't think the United States should be a goal by itself, but it's a different philosophy in many countries in Europe. But when you look at the American way, is we're gonna use you for what you can do. We're still gonna grow your skills enough, but you got to be right there at that very moment. That's why for so many years looking for the 6'10", 6'11" athletic that can rebound and block shots, African players, so they can use him right away. In Europe, the vision is going to be long term because of how club function. There's not a lot of money on the table. And I'm saying this because you don't have a lot of stress. People see like 3, 4, 5 years, we want this kid to be ready to play in our first division team. And so that's your first most important decision is which path am I going to go to? Am I going to go to Europe where I'm going to have more time to develop, or am I ready to go to the United States and get ready for college? And I think that's a pretty big decision.
And maybe the next thing that we can highlight is, what do you think? What do scouts look for? What are the important traits, whether it's on court and off court, and what makes a player, or how do you identify a player who's ready from a playing perspective and also just from a maturity perspective? And you think, this one might be worth investigating.
So, when you're on the continent, it's very, very rare that you find a player that is technically and in terms of experience at the level of Europe or the United States, just because there's not a lot of basketball, under 10, 12 years old and 14 years old. There's not a lot of competition. So kids don't have that experience. So you're definitely looking at the body type, you're looking at the culture, and, things that people don't see is that, players all around the world develop in a different way. It's part of the culture. It's also part of your DNA, how your body is gonna grow. When you look at a Nigerian player, the broad shoulders, the physicality, it's part of the culture. So you just know when you get a raw Nigerian player that really likes a lot of basketball, you just know that the physicality is going to be there and he's going to fight for every rebound. Those are just the young men that are going to be, beast in the paint. And the same thing in Cameroon, by the way, it's part of the culture. So sometimes, when you're not used to come and scout in Africa, you expect the same development as you see in Europe or in the United States. And you might be surprised. To be honest, one of the players, and that was a lesson that I've learned about 15 years ago when Joel Embiid was at BWB. I don't even have any scouting report on Joel Embiid, to be honest. And when you look at the NBA clips of Joel Embiid at BWB, he's not even at the center. They were recording somebody else. He just happened to be there, around that person, because he couldn't. I mean, he was a good athlete, but he couldn't really score a basket. He couldn't do much on defense. He was more of a body than anything else. And I made the same mistakes that people still make today, by the way, who don't have that experience, is that you forget that the kid hasn't been exposed to the game. And once you're being exposed for the first time, your first intake always goes a long way. Even if you come in late, it goes a long way. And you see the development behind. I remember I saw him at, BWB. I didn't have any notes. And then when he was in college, I started looking, who's this kid from Africa? And I'm like, man, he's on the roster sheet from BWB. And I started to search my drive. It's the old school drive, those big hard drive. Like, I don't have anything on him. So, knowing what you are scouting, the type of players, the type of athlete is very, very important.
Well, I guess you took it to exactly where I wanted to go. Now, apart from academies, we are blessed with these showcases for what they are. Now it was always a privilege to be an invitee as one of the young up and coming talents to BWB, because it was always a top 100 showcase, and it's shrunk even more to where it's just the top 60 athletes at this point across the different countries on the continent, and you really do get the chance to engage with college and NBA coaches, and it's a great opportunity for you to network with some of the best players on the continent, even at that age. How important is BWB, the Giants of Africa? Those are the two primary showcases that I think happen where premier talent on the continent gets invited, and they do a great job of first talent identification and then creating competition. That is is it a big step if you don't get invited, or how big a deal is it if you do get invited, especially as identified young talent?
Yeah, there's always an advantage. You go to BWB. Giants of Africa, I've been very impressed the last 5 years. Giants of Africa has done an amazing job bringing players and, having a showcase. So it's a big step if you have an opportunity to go to those places, but there are many other ways um, to be visible to the outside world. And visibility is a key word. I spend some time on social media and I get a lot of messages. I think that that's one way that you can do it. You send messages, you build your own videos, you put it on social media. There's so many people related, as basketball is a global game and networking is very easy nowadays. Back in the days, and you and I, we know there wasn't no social media. So basically it was hard to get in touch with somebody who knew basketball. But in today's world, you get on social media, you have access to those guys. You send a message. I'm not saying that they're going to be able to respond, but I always very about you have to take your destiny in your own hands. While you're asking other people, how can I make this happen? Go out there, put your video. Be careful with the music, by the way, because sometimes you might not understand what they're saying in English, but it might be offending to some people. But I think there are multiple ways, and colleges. It's not like Africa is unknown to the rest of the world. We know Africa has got plenty of athletes. It's a proven market. And people want to get to know you, by the way, if you have the skills. The one thing that we say is important as coaches, teachers, players, to learn the game is always, make sure that you teach every skills, every fundamentals. You don't know how tall they're going to be. Don't know if the kid's going to be 6'10" or 6'5", but it's important that the 6'10" has all the skills. As you can see, Jokic in today's basketball, Giannis pushing the ball in fast break. Make sure that you don't make that mistake to find a 6'4", because we do still see 6'4" kids playing in the paint, and you're like, man, I wish this kid would have been a wing. So you got to keep your opportunities open by understanding the game and working on all the fundamentals.
Well, we can continue this conversation for an hour without a doubt, but it's definitely something we're going to continue to revisit as we continue to showcase the young up and coming talent on the continent. We'll also keep getting better because you know what? This is Wingspan, because we span the length and the breadth of the continent as we continue to build. And this is where we're going to bring the conversation to an end, Jacques. And as always, it's been fascinating. And I think it's only going to keep getting better. But this week, that's all she wrote. Episode 3 is in the books, and let's look for the 4-point play the next time we're out.